The superior person is calm and composed, the lesser person is continuously worried and distressed. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help someone else. A man who lacks reliability is utterly useless. Expect much from yourself and little from others, and you will avoid incurring resentments. Education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. He who cannot describe the problem will never find the solution to that problem. Love should start from people close to us, then be extended to other people, to strangers, and eventually to the world. Isn't it a pleasure to study and practice what you have learned? He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. When anger rises, think of the consequences. A wise man has dignity without pride, a fool has pride without dignity. You can cheat an honest man but not make a fool out of him. The superior man loves his soul, the inferior man loves his property. Table your mistakes, learn from them, then move on. Clever talk and domineering manner have little to do with being a man at his best. A ruthless man extends his ruthlessness from those he does not love to those he loves. A hammer shatters glass, but it also forges steel. When you see a worthy person, endeavor to emulate him. When you see an unworthy person, then examine your inner self. If you try to do too much, you will not achieve anything. The tongue must be heavy indeed, because so few people can hold it. Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. He who fails to prepare, prepares to fail. A man is great not because he hasn't failed, a man is great because failure hasn't stopped him. A great man is hard on himself, a small man is hard on others. Knowledge without practice is useless. Practice without knowledge is dangerous. Keep it simple and focus on what matters. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed. Being strong does not mean that you never fall down, but that whenever you fall, you get up again. I was complaining that I had no shoes till I met a man who had no feet. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Cultivate the root, the leaves and branches will take care of themselves. An orchid in a deep forest sends out its fragrance even if no one is around to appreciate it. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. Tell people, and they may forget. Show them, they may remember. But involve them and they will understand. Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. As the water shapes itself to the vessel that contains it, so a wise man adapts himself to circumstances. There are 1,000 lessons in defeat, but only one in victory. The archer who misses his mark does not blame the target. He stops, corrects himself and shoots again. The man who asks a question is a fool for a minute, the man who does not ask is a fool for life. The superior person is in harmony, but does not follow the crowd. The lesser person follows the crowd, but is not in harmony. Attack the evil that is within yourself, rather than attacking the evil that is in others. 3 things cannot long be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Happiness does not consist in having what you want, but in wanting what you have. To know your faults and be able to change is the greatest virtue. If you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. There is only one thing in life which never changes, and it is change. Roads were made for journeys, not destinations. The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor men without trials. You will never know how sharp a sword is unless it's drawn from its sheath. Do not worry if others do not understand you. Instead, worry if you do not understand others. We are so busy doing the urgent that we don't have time to do the important. It is better to light one small candle of gratitude than to curse the darkness. Act with kindness, but do not expect gratitude. Exemplary persons are steadfast in the face of adversity, while petty persons are engulfed by it. When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Every house guest brings you happiness. Some when they arrive, and some when they are leaving. There are 3 things against which the wise man guards: lust when young, quarrels when strong, and covetousness when old. He who knows all the answers has not been asked all the questions. First, there must be order and harmony within your own mind. Everyone eats and drinks, yet only few appreciate the taste of food. The beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper name. To see and listen to the wicked is already the beginning of wickedness. Wherever you go, go with all your heart. All the darkness in the world can't put out the light of one candle. If doing what ought to be done be made the first business and success a secondary consideration, is not this the way to exalt virtue? A man exercising no forethought will soon experience present sorrow. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. The virtuous man is driven by responsibility, the non-virtuous man is driven by profit. In old days men studied for the sake of self-improvement, nowadays men study in order to impress other people. Cultivated people foster what is good in others, not what is bad. Petty people do the opposite. Wisdom is rooted in watching with affection the way people grow. Remember, even when alone, that the divine is everywhere. A heart set on love will do no wrong. The Master said, "A true teacher is one who, keeping the past alive, is also able to understand the present." The man who says he can, and the man who says he cannot, are both correct. Ah, music, sacred tongue of God! I hear thee calling and I come. An angry man is full of poison. When you locate good in yourself, approve of it with determination. When you locate evil in yourself, despise it as something detestable. To know what is the right thing to do and not do it is the greatest cowardice. Don't curse the darkness, light a candle. To be wronged is nothing unless you continue to remember it. Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. Happiness is not at the top of the mountain, but in how to climb. Silence is a true friend who never betrays. The general of a large army may be defeated, but you cannot defeat the determined mind of a peasant. Don't let your past determine your destiny. The real fault is to have faults and not amend them. Seek not every quality in one individual. The master was entirely free from four things: prejudice, foregone conclusions, obstinacy, and egoism. Good people strengthen themselves ceaselessly. By gaining the people, the kingdom is gained. By losing the people, the kingdom is lost. Those who do not study are only cattle dressed up in men's clothes. I'd rather die for speaking out than to live and be silent. It is not possible for one to teach others who cannot teach his own family. The father who does not teach his son his duties is equally guilty with the son who neglects them. You judge yourself by what you think you can achieve, others judge you by what have achieved. Without that innate sense of human worth, a man cannot long endure adversity, nor can he long enjoy prosperity. The man of wisdom is never of two minds, the man of benevolence never worries, the man of courage is never afraid. If you make a mistake and do not correct it, this is called a mistake. The love to wisdom is getting closer to the own bright path. It is the law of nature that woman should be held under the dominance of men. Writing cannot express all words, words cannot encompass all ideas. A workman who wants to do his work well must first prepare his tools. The hardest thing of all is to find a black cat in a dark room, especially if there is no cat. To be wealthy and honored in an unjust society is a disgrace. A man who does not think and plan long ahead will find trouble right at his door. Do not use a cannon to kill a mosquito. A fool despises good counsel, but a wise man takes it to heart. The superior man, even when he is not moving, has a feeling of reverence, and while he speaks not, he has the feeling of truthfulness. A wise man seeks by music to strengthen his soul, the thoughtless one uses it to stifle his fears. Success depends upon previous preparation, and without such preparation there is sure to be failure. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. Men who want pretty nurse must be patient. When words lose their meaning, people lose their liberty. Those who cannot forgive others break the bridge over which they themselves must pass. A gentleman would be ashamed should his deeds not match his words. Be loyal and trustworthy. Do not befriend anyone who is lower than yourself in this regard. A lion chased me up a tree, and I greatly enjoyed the view from the top. The person who is not strong enough gives up at the halfway point, but you are limiting yourself before even starting. A true gentleman makes demands upon himself but not upon others. What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. All people are the same, only their habits differ. If there were one word that could act as a standard of conduct for one's entire life, perhaps it would be thoughtfulness. When a wise man points at the moon, the imbecile examines the finger. Every journey starts with a single step. Unify your attention. Do not listen with your ears, but with your mind. Do not listen with your mind, but with your essence. Study the past if you want to define the future. To take what you know for what you know, and what you do not know for what you do not know, that is knowledge indeed. There is one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life: reciprocity. The way out is through the door. Why is it that no one will use this method? Time flows away like the water in the river. The superior man is intelligently, not blindly, faithful. The master said, "The gentleman understands what is right, whereas the petty man understands profit." Analects 4.16. Be versed in ancient lore, and familiarize yourself with the modern, then may you become teachers. The gods cannot help those who do not seize opportunities. Rather than caring about whether or not you are known, strive to be worth knowing. What the wise seek is in themselves. I am not an originator but a transmitter. A man who has committed a mistake and does not correct it is committing another mistake. Every truth has four corners. As a teacher I give you one corner, and it is for you to find the other three. You cannot open a book without learning something. The people may be put into the way they should go, though they may not be put into the way of understanding it. In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of. In a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of. When wealth is centralized, the people are dispersed. When wealth is distributed, the people are brought together. Rotten wood cannot be carved. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. Balance is the perfect state of still water. Let that be our model. It remains quiet within and is not disturbed on the surface. Teachers open the door, you enter by yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you forgive yourself. Study the past, if you would divine the future. A superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. Only the wisest and stupidest of men never change. Humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. To become a leader, you must first become a human being. There is one single thread binding my way together. The way of the master consists in doing one's best, that is all. Be in harmony, yet be different. If you yourself desire establishment, then help others to get establishment. If you yourself want success, then help others to attain success. The superior man thinks always of virtue, the common man thinks of comfort. The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterward speaks according to his action. An inconvenience is an unrecognized opportunity. A blemish may be removed from a diamond by careful polishing, but evil words once spoken cannot be effaced. Respect yourself and others will respect you. If you look into your own heart, and you find nothing wrong there, what is there to worry about? What is there to fear? The more man meditates upon good thoughts, the better will be his world and the world at large. The noble-minded are calm and steady. Little people are forever fussing and fretting. Do not answer the person whose questions are vile. Do not question a person whose answers are vile. When people are educated, the distinction between classes disappears. Therefore the superior man is watchful over himself, when he is alone. In a state, pecuniary gain is not to be considered to be prosperity, but its prosperity will be found in righteousness. There are three unfilial acts: The greatest of these is the failure to produce sons. Don't worry that other people don't know you, worry that you don't know other people. The three armies can be deprived of their commanding officer, but even a common man cannot be deprived of his purpose. The superior man is universally minded and no partisan. The inferior man is a partisan and not universal. A person of character takes as much trouble to discover what is right as the lesser men take to discover what will pay. Don't worry if people don't recognize your merits, worry that you may not recognize theirs. To study and not think is a waste. To think and not study is dangerous. Everything has its beauty, but not everyone sees it. To see it, a person only needs to imagine how it could be worse. If a man takes no thought about what is distant, he will find sorrow near at hand. They must often change, who would be constant in happiness or wisdom. When you see a good man, try to emulate his example, and when you see a bad man, search yourself for his faults. A gentleman considers what is right, the vulgar consider what will pay. If you would one day renovate yourself, do so from day to day. It is better to play than do nothing. An image is better than 1,000 words. When you are ignorant about something, to know that you are ignorant about it, that is knowledge. See a person's means. Observe his motives. Examine that in which he rests. How can a person conceal his character? The chase of gain is rich in hate. There are not the weeds the ones that drown the good seed, but the negligence of the peasant. Men do not stumble over mountains, but over molehills. When young, beware of fighting, when strong, beware of sex, and when old, beware of possession. Make faithfulness and truth thy masters, have no friends unlike thyself, be not ashamed to mend thy faults. Never contract friendship with a man that is not better than thyself. A gentleman does not promote a man on account of what he says, nor does he reject sayings, because the speaker is what he is. I am not bothered by the fact that I am not understood. I am bothered when I do not know others. Between friends, frequent reproofs make the friendship distant. He is the truly courageous man who never desponds. The gentleman prefers to be slow in word but diligent in action. Forget injuries, never forget kindnesses. Only after winter comes do we know that the pine and the cypress are the last to fade. Give a man a fish, feed home for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed for a lifetime. The man who loves his job never works a day in his life. Respect the gods and the devils, but keep them at a distance. Your eyes are always bigger than your stomach. Be loyal to yourself, charitable to neighbors, nothing more. The great mountain must collapse, the mighty beam must break, and the wise man wither like a plant. Virtue is not solitary, it is bound to have neighbors. When prosperity comes, do not use all of it. The superior man is aware of righteousness, the inferior man is aware of advantage. Fine words and an insinuating appearance are seldom associated with true virtue. Excess and deficiency are equally at fault. Big head, target for enemy, big heart, target for friend. A man who does not forget an agreement is resolved and honorable man. It is more shameful to distrust our friends than to be deceived by them. A bit of fragrance always clings to the hand that gives roses. If you are generous, you will gain everything. Don't worry about being acknowledged by others, worry about failing to acknowledge them. Don't be concerned that you have no position, be concerned how you may fit yourself to occupy one. To govern is to correct. If you set an example by being correct, who would dare to remain incorrect? If I understand change, I shall make no great mistake in life. Learn as though you would never be able to master it, hold it as though you would be in fear of losing it. The green reed which bends in the wind is stronger than the mighty oak which breaks in a storm. Do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire. A gentleman is ashamed to let his words outrun his deeds. Reviewing what you have learned and learning anew, you are fit to be a teacher. Better a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without. Learning without thought is labor lost, thought without learning is perilous. What the superior man seeks is in himself, what the small man seeks is in others. When strict with oneself, one rarely fails. Men who stand on hill with mouth open will wait long time for roast duck to drop in. It is better not to proceed at all than to proceed without purpose. Music produces a kind of pleasure which human nature cannot do without. Without knowing the force of words, it is impossible to know more. Signs and symbols rule the world, not words nor laws. Gravity is only the bark of wisdom's tree, but it preserves it. The cautious seldom err. To practice 5 things under all circumstances constitutes perfect virtue. These 5 are gravity, generosity of soul, sincerity, earnestness, and kindness. In a district of 10 families, there must be someone as honorable and sincere as I, but none as fond of learning. Character is the backbone of our human culture. Music is the flowering of character. If you don't want to do something, don't impose on others. When I walk along with 2 others, from at least one I will be able to learn. To be fond of learning is near to wisdom. In antiquity men studied for their own sake, nowadays men study for the sake of impressing others. The superior person gathers his weapons together in order to provide against the unforeseen. What you do not wish upon yourself, extend not to others. A scholar who loves comfort is not fit to be called a scholar. There has never been a man mean and at the same time virtuous. I live in a very small house, but my windows look out on a very large world. A good man does not worry about not being known by others, but rather is concerned about not knowing them. Those who break down the dikes will themselves be drowned in the inundation. If you want to change the world, first change your heart. A gentleman can see a question from all sides without bias. The small man is biased and can see a question only from one side. Even if people do not know what real kindness is, they nonetheless have it within them. Transport a handful of earth every day and you will make a mountain. Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your own doorstep is unclean. To be truly happy and contented, you must let go of what it means to be happy or content. Knowing something is not as good as liking it. Liking something is not as good as rejoicing in it. It doesn't make a difference how gradually you go so long as you don't stop. A lack of patience in trifling matters might lead to the disruption of great project. Sincerity is the end and beginning of things. Without sincerity there would be nothing. A happy union with wife and child is like the music of lutes and harps. He who wished to secure the good of others has already secured his own. Do unto others as you wish others do unto you. If you did not do so for the sake of riches, you must have done so for the sake of novelty. Those who know the truth are not equal to those who love it. I have yet to meet a man as fond of high moral conduct as he is of outward appearances. Music is the one thing in which there is no use trying to deceive others or make false pretenses. One joy dispels 100 cares. In speaking, it is best to be clear and say just enough to convey the meaning. To love a thing means wanting it to live. Ability will never catch up with the demand for it. To know and not do is to not yet know. To know is to know that you know nothing. That is the meaning of true knowledge. A fool marvels at rare things, but a wise man at common ones. Future generation is the most important thing. Knowledge is merely brilliance in organization of ideas and not wisdom. The truly wise person goes beyond knowledge. It is better to live in peace than in bitterness and strife. Reading without thinking will confuse you. Thinking without reading will place you in danger. Heaven means to be one with God. You must find time for reading, or surrender yourself to self-chosen ignorance. The perfecting of one's self is the fundamental base of all progress and all moral development. Don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. When you are laboring for others, let it be with the same zeal as if it were for yourself. The superior man makes the difficulty to be overcome his first interest. Success only comes later. Men shoot at nothing, sure to hit it. Study as though you cannot catch up to it, and as though you fear you are going to lose it. The most beautiful sight in the world is a little child going confidently down the road of life after you have shown him the way. Faced with what is right, to leave it undone shows a lack of courage. The man who is master of himself drinks gravely and wisely. Sincerity and truth are the basis of every virtue. Wisdom, compassion, and courage are the three universally recognized moral qualities of men. It is when those who are not strong enough have made some moderate amount of progress that they fail and give up. Never do to others what you would not like them to do to you. To lead uninstructed people to war is to throw them away. The way you cut your meat reflects the way you live. A superior man in dealing with the world is not for anything or against anything. He follows righteousness as the standard. Those who make virtue their profession are the ruin of virtue. Study without reflection is a waste of time. Reflection without study is dangerous. True wisdom is knowing what you don't know. Look at the means which a man employs, consider his motives, observe his pleasures. A man simply cannot conceal himself. A nation's character is typified by its dancers. Stars are holes in the sky from which the light of the infinite shines. The sun and moon shine on all without partiality. Benevolence is the characteristic element of humanity. The expectations of life depend upon diligence. The mechanic that would perfect his work must first sharpen his tools. To know it is not as good as to love it, and to love it is not as good as to take delight in it. It is not the failure of others to appreciate your abilities that should trouble you, but rather your failure to appreciate theirs. The great man is sparing in words but prodigal in deeds. The superior man is quiet and calm, waiting for the appointments of heaven, while the mean man walks in dangerous paths, looking for lucky occurrences. If you don't know how to live, why wonder about death? Wisdom, humanity and courage, these three are universal virtues. The way by which they are practiced are one. To know everything is to know nothing, but to know nothing is to know everything. The more people know, the more they forgive. Know what you know and know that you don't know what you don't know. That is the characteristic of one who knows. A man without a mustache is a man without a soul. Excessive population growth may reduce output per worker, repress levels of living for the masses and engender strife. Plan ahead or find trouble on the doorstep. From a grain of sand in the pearl comes. The person of benevolence never worries. A youth is to be regarded with respect. When you breathe, you inspire, and when you do not breathe, you expire. Sincerity is that whereby self-completion is effected, and its way is that by which man must direct himself. He who speaks without modesty will find it difficult to make his words good. It is man that makes truth great, and not truth that makes man great. You do not understand even life. How can you understand death? If a man keeps cherishing his old knowledge so as continually to be acquiring new, he may be a teacher of others. The highest kind of man is the one who does before talking and practices what he professes. There is nothing more visible than what is secret, and nothing more manifest than what is minute. If I am virtuous and worthy, for whom should I not maintain a proper concern? Faithfulness and sincerity are the highest things. Never hesitate to ask a lesser person. If I do not participate in the sacrifice, it is as if I did not sacrifice at all. There is nothing impossible in all the world except that the heart of man is wanting in resolution. You can successfully force people to follow a certain course, but you cannot force them to understand it. If you lead the people with correctness, who will dare not be correct? The Master said, if your conduct is determined solely by considerations of profit, you will arouse great resentment. The contrived language and the flattering attitude rarely come with the virtue. An oppressive government is more to be feared than a tiger. Sincerity is the way of heaven. Charity, like the sun, brightens every object on which it shines. Shall I tell you what knowledge is? It is to know both what one knows and what one does not know. We should not be too familiar with the lower orders or with women. The superior man understands what is right, the inferior man understands what will sell. Study as if you have not reached your goal, hold it as if you were afraid of losing what you have. The people may be made to follow a path of action, but they may not be made to understand it. He who merely knows right principles is not equal to him who loves them. The superior man, when resting in safety, does not forget that danger may come. Humankind differs from the animals only by a little, and most people throw that away. A superior man is one who is free from fear and anxieties. A man should practice what he preaches, but a man should also preach what he practices. Without an acquaintance with the rules of propriety, it is impossible for the character to be established. A youth is to be regarded with respect. How do we know that his future will not be equal to our present? Knowledge is recognizing what you know and what you don't. Love is like a spice. It can sweeten your life, however, it can spoil it, too. The superior man is easy to serve, but difficult to please. The inferior man is difficult to serve, but easy to please. Better than the one who knows what is right is the one who loves what is right. The requisites of government are that there be sufficiency of food, sufficiency of military equipment, and the confidence of the people in their ruler. Gentlemen cherish worth, the vulgar cherish dirt. Gentlemen trust in justice, the vulgar trust in favor. He who works for his own interests will arouse much animosity. The proper man understands equity, the small man profits. If a man in the morning hear the right way, he may die in the evening without regret. All things are already complete in oneself. The mirror reflects all objects without being sullied. If you don't know the life yet, how could it be possible for you to know the death? When you have faults, do not fear to abandon them. Waste begets self-will, thrift begets meanness, but better be mean than self-willed. The superior man is slow in his words and earnest in his conduct. If you reflect within yourself and find nothing to be ashamed of, how could you have anxiety or fear? The gentleman desires to be halting in speech but quick in action. We should feel sorrow, but not sink under its oppression. What is most needed for learning is a humble mind. He who requires much from himself and little from others will keep himself from being the object of resentment. If one is guided by profit in one's actions, one will incur much ill will. The superior man is satisfied and composed, the mean man is always full of distress. Only by perfect virtue can the perfect path, in all its courses, be made a fact. It is only the very wisest and the very stupidest who never change. Heaven sends down its good and evil symbols, and wise men act accordingly. If you devote your life to seeking revenge, first dig 2 graves. When frying small fish, disturb them little. Virtuous people often revenge themselves for the constraints to which they submit by the boredom which they inspire. He who is really kind can never be unhappy. With a heavy load and a long journey, consideration for others is the basis of a good life, a good society. Men of principle are sure to be bold, but those who are bold may not always be men of principle. When you see a good person, think of becoming like her/him. When you see someone not so good, reflect on your own weak points. Can there be a love which does not make demands on its object? Without feelings of respect, what is there to distinguish men from beasts?